Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin streaming show. I am Amber Miller, your host. Before we get to our guest today, of course, I always like to do a couple plugs on websites that might be of interest to you. So please visit the AARP Wisconsin website, which has information on upcoming virtual events. It has information about the vaccine, about volunteer opportunities. It really is a great website to visit if you're wanting to know what AARP Wisconsin is working on. So you can definitely go to the website below, which is aarp.org/WI. Also, please remember the AARP Community Connections website. So this launched last year. If you go onto the website, there's a couple different things that you could check out. One, of course, is you could look for local volunteer opportunities or actually create your own local opportunities to volunteer. So if you're looking maybe to get a group together to do neighborhood cleanup, you can post that there. And also there is the AARP Friendly Voice Initiative. This is something that you can do to put a request in for yourself or for your loved one to hear a friendly voice on the other end during these times. There is no cost. You do not need to be an AARP member, and it is open to all ages. So you can go to the website or dial 1-888-281-0145. And just a friendly reminder, there is no cost. If you would like to volunteer with us, we're always looking to add people to the AARP Wisconsin volunteer family. Even though we are living in a virtual world right now, we're still looking for great volunteers to help support our mission. So if you're interested in volunteering with AARP Wisconsin, there is information at the website below, which is aarp.org, and then /I want the number 2 volunteer. So I want to volunteer. You can also find volunteer information at the regular AARP Wisconsin website also. So I always enjoy having our advocacy team on. They always have such great information. So today I am joined by Miss Lisa Lamkins. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Amber.
Good to see you. We not only do you have such great information, but we always have just a really good time. So I always appreciate when you and Helen are on. And if you are watching this live, and if you have any questions for our guest, you can post them below if you're on Facebook.com or YouTube, and we will make sure that we get to them through the show. If you are watching this in replay, I always encourage you to share this video on your social media to share the information with your friends, family, and network. So I know every year is real busy for you for an advocacy, but I know especially this year has just been really busy for advocacy. So Lisa, what were your 2 best advocacy accomplishments at the state level? You know where I was going with that. Thank you.
I do know where you were going. And, one of the reasons this last year was so busy was because it was a state budget year. And every 2 years, our Wisconsin state legislature creates a 2-year budget for the state. And they do it the first part of the year. And AARP does a lot of work trying to make sure that our priorities are included in that budget. And then we, prior to that time, we spend a lot of time laying the groundwork. And this particular year, we actually had 5 different priorities that we were pushing for. So this will be my test. Can I remember all 5 of them? One is supporting family caregivers. One was improving access to retirement security programs. One was expanding Medicaid. My goodness, what were the other ones? Why am I completely blanking on them? Anyway, they were amazing. It is one of those days. Maybe Courtney can ding me and remind me what they are. Yeah. But we had 5 different areas that we were working in, and lowering prescription drug prices. How could I completely forget one of our most important ones? Our volunteers were amazing. What we had to do, because we've been living in a virtual world, we had to basically build a campaign based on the virtual world that we're living in. So we were able to get all of our priorities included in the governor's version of the budget. So the way the process works, the governor comes out with his version first, and then it goes to the state legislature and they make changes to it. It was a huge win for us to have all of our AARP priorities included in the governor's version of the state budget. And then we really went to work trying to influence the state legislature. And we had our amazing crew of volunteers do phone calls, send emails, and they wrote letters. We did virtual hearings. There were lots of different hearings, some sponsored by the governor, some sponsored by legislative leadership, some sponsored by other organizations. And then, of course, there are the traditional hearings that were sponsored by the Joint Finance Committee. And we had about 20 volunteers who actually gave virtual testimony at that event. So unfortunately, at the end of the day, really only one of our priorities made it through that process. And it's one that I didn't mention yet. So super glad I kind of reminded myself, expanding broadband.
Very important.
Right, exactly. Here we are, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have access to broadband. So the campaign was giantly successful in terms of how we engaged people, how we engaged our members, how we built partnerships with other organizations, even if at the end of the day we didn't get everything we wanted this time around. We'll keep working on it, though.
Absolutely. And I know that if people are interested in learning more, they can visit the website because there's a lot of information about advocacy that was focused on for this year. And I know, yes, 2021 definitely has been a virtual world. So what challenges did that pose for advocacy, and how did they, you and they overcome those challenges with being virtual?
Well, advocacy is really about relationship building. So, getting things done is much harder when you can't meet in person. We also have these fabulous volunteers that I've talked about. We call them our advocates, or we call them our red shirts, because they are a visible presence by wearing literal red shirts that have AARP on it. And what that shows is that those folks are representing the other 820,000 AARP members across the state. So not being able to be there in person was a bit of a challenge. We really just had to utilize the tools available to us. We had a bigger focus on media outreach. We did more calls, phone calls, emails. I mentioned we did virtual hearings. I will say one interesting thing we did, and I'm not sure if we were able to include a photo of this, but
yes.
The state budget committee did virtual. They did only one virtual hearing. The rest of their hearings were in person, and we couldn't be there. So what we did was we sent this cool electronic billboard truck to drive around and highlight AARP's priorities. So the truck, you see the picture here, it is parked in front of a dome in Rhinelander, I believe, is where this particular photo was taken. And so, we stayed visible in the minds of legislators and our members and other folks by getting creative and using tactics like that.
And I do appreciate the fact that the advocacy volunteers have really made still an effort to make their voice heard, because if anything, from what I heard, Lisa, and tell me if I'm wrong, there was actually a lot of volunteers who were able to come in virtually to those hearings that maybe normally couldn't, because maybe they weren't that close to the Madison area to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. This virtual world has enabled us to expand the number of people who get to participate in things. It's hard if the only hearing is 3 hours away and, it's being held on a day when it's rainy and crummy. It's much easier to participate and share your voice and your thoughts when you just have to dial in. And so we had people who had never been able to give virtual testimony before or give testimony who were able to do it virtually. And I think that was really significant. And I think I'm hopeful as we go forward that even the world of advocacy remains hybrid, that we do some things in person, but that we're still able to connect with folks who, live across the state and who want to be engaged in our political process.
Absolutely. And Lisa, I know AARP's advocacy is supposed to make life better for people 50 and older and their families, but people aren't always aware of the new laws. And I am probably one of them, even though I work for AARP. So you did several public information campaigns to inform our members and the public about the new programs created by legislation. So can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, people often don't think, in terms of the public education component after something is passed, but AARP is really great about making sure people know how they're impacted. And I would say one of the most important things we did had to do with something. It was a law passed at the federal level called the Emergency Broadband Benefit. It was part of a bigger bill, and it was basically help. It was a bill that provided financial assistance to people to be able to get devices and help with broadband services, like actual discounts and financial assistance for those services. It was originally short term, just during the pandemic. However, AARP has been successful in lobbying to make the program permanent, and this is actually a huge deal. So the new name of the program is the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is not particularly catchy.
Not really, but
but
it'll do. It'll
I
do.
know. So I liked EBB better. It sort of
Yeah.
had a flow. But you can get information on this program if you go to the aarp.org/EBB website. That actually takes you, it links you to an article that has the new program name, and it has all the information about who's eligible, what the benefit is, how do you apply, how long it takes. We were instrumental in sharing this information early on, and we have over like 140,000 Wisconsinites who have benefited from this program.
Nice.
So I encourage people to go check it out. So that was one of the issue areas where I think AARP played a role in telling people about a program that they wouldn't have known about otherwise. Another one is a little different, and this was to provide information to some of our partners. There was a piece of legislation, the American Rescue Plan Act, which you hear a lot about, because what it basically did was, again, a federal bill that was gave money to lots of different levels of government, to different components, different issue areas. The problem is it was so big and people didn't really know what's Wisconsin getting, how much is there for education, how much is there for broadband, how much is there for housing, how much is there for streets. It was sort of all over the place in terms of what was going to be available. So based on a model that some partners in another state had done, we worked with a partner here to create a report and a webinar that was shared with our partners so that people knew how they could advocate for those funds to best help people in communities. And we posted that. We just call it the ARPA. ARPA is the fun acronym for that. And that's posted to our AARP website so people can go and check that out. And then finally, I think the last education push we did was less necessarily around new laws and really more around just resources in the community. And that had to do with the vaccine outreach. And it seems like a long time ago now, but early on, especially when people wanted vaccines, didn't know where to turn at all to get one, right? Very few people could get them. You had to go online to find a vaccine. It was really tough. AARP created this incredible resource. It still exists, and it's being updated with information on boosters. So this aarp.org/WI vaccine is our Wisconsin vaccine guide. And AARP really did a ton of outreach. We had telephone town halls with state officials who were leading the vaccine outreach programs within the state. We did mailings. We really were, people who wanted the information were able to find it. I'll also say that just within the past couple of weeks, AARP has announced a partnership with the White House in terms of encouraging people to get their booster shots. We know about 86% of adults 65 plus are vaccinated, but only about 42% of them have their boosters. So it really is important to get those boosters. It's kind of our way out of this pandemic. So again, you can check out that website and get more information on the booster shots.
And
So
it's
I feel really good about all of those campaigns.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
I was gonna no, that's fine, Lisa. I was gonna say also with that website, if you know somebody, if you're one of our viewers right now, and you know of somebody who still maybe hasn't received their vaccine or maybe has questions, doesn't know where to turn. Yeah, this website, as Lisa said, is still active and it's being updated. So let's, try to, as Wisconsinites, support our friends and neighbors and network to ensure that they're getting the most up-to-date information. And you don't need to be an AARP member to go to that website. That is information for all. And Lisa, it looks like we have a question from Jim. So we'll take this and then get to our next question. So Jim, I know AARP is nonpartisan, but can people volunteer for AARP if they have a strong political view one way or the other?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jim, because we have all these amazing volunteers. And, people can volunteer for AARP if they have strong political views. The only thing we ask is if they are representing AARP and they put that AARP hat on, they put that AARP red shirt on, whenever they do that, they instantly become nonpartisan and they have to put those partisan feelings aside. Now, when you don't have your AARP red shirt on, you're still a citizen. You still get to participate in the political process in any way that you see fit. But on behalf of AARP, when you represent the organization, it is just critical that folks remain nonpartisan. We support issues. We want to make things better. We are a wise friend and fierce defender for people age 50 plus and their families. And the best way to do that is to work with whoever will work with us, regardless of their political party, on getting those important things passed so that we can make life better. So great question. We'll always maintain that nonpartisanship.
And Lisa, I know you talked about EBB, also known now as Affordable Connectivity Program. The boosters and the ARPA report. You guys do so many things, and I know that's just kind of a fraction of what you guys worked on it. And we know that it's, the end of the year. But one of AARP's biggest priorities, of course, is still being debated in Congress. So can you talk a little bit more about AARP's priorities in the Build Back Better bill and the status of that legislation? That's another mouthful. You have to get those B's right. So
it is. I know we go from EBB to BBB, and it is quite the tongue twister. Yeah. Yes, the Build Back Better bill has several of AARP's priorities in it. And it passed the House of Representatives before Thanksgiving, and it is now in the Senate. The Senate is kind of going through a special process that they have to go through. And they're kind of looking at the bill line by line and making sure it meets some rules. But AARP is really pushing, particularly for a provision around lowering prescription drug prices. This is one of our top priorities. It has frankly been one of our top priorities the entire time I have worked for AARP, which is going on 30 years now. And this piece of legislation, the Build Back Better Act, includes 3 ways that will lower drug prices. First of all, for the first time, it will allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices on some drugs. This is huge, so big. That negotiation, they'd start it in 2023, and you'd actually see the prices decrease by 2025. It's, they're sort of slowly bringing the number of drugs. It applies to only certain drugs, but this is one of the number one ways we can bring drug prices down for people. So it would allow Medicare to negotiate for better drug prices. it would institute an out-of-pocket cap, a $2,000 out-of-pocket cap for people on Medicare Part D. That doesn't exist right now. Once you reach a certain threshold, you pay less in copays, but you still pay. For some people, that can mean $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year. There would now be a $2,000 out-of-pocket cap. Plus, there would be a $35 cap on insulin. Think about that. Think of all the stories we've heard about people dying because the insulin costs $700 a vial. That is absurd. There's no reason that people should be paying those prices. So this bill would institute a $35 cap on insulin.
Wow. Great.
Yeah. And then finally, one of the reasons that we hear people are dying because they can't afford their medications or because pharmaceutical companies can raise those prices as much as they want. So the third piece of this bill would penalize drug companies if they tried to increase their prices more than the cost of inflation. So all three of those things would really come together to bring real relief to consumers at the pharmacy counter. Those pieces were set to actually fall out of the House version, and AARP members across the country sprang into action. We had like over 1.5 million phone calls into Congress because this is a bread and butter issue that impacts people every day when folks go to the pharmacy counter. I see it. I see it when my parents go to the pharmacy counter. When my dad tells me, oh, we were going to pick up this cough medicine for your mom, but it was $100 and she'd already had 6 other things and they just couldn't swing it. So they're like, well, we just got more Hall's, medicine, more throat lozengers. These provisions would truly help people. And there are tons of other things in this bill. The Build Back Better bill is a landmark piece of legislation. It would provide paid leave, 4 weeks of paid leave for people to care for a loved one. This would include caregivers who are caring for their aging parents. It includes help to make the Affordable Care Act marketplace more affordable for folks. It includes some premium support for that. It includes some funding for home and community-based services. And those are things kind of like our family care program here within the state. It includes money for housing, specifically some funds specifically set aside for people age 62 plus. There are many pieces of this bill that will help people of all ages. But I have to say, it is truly because of AARP's fight and power, and truly the power of our members and our volunteers, that the prescription drug piece is still in there. Now, we want to make sure it gets through the Senate. So, if you have a chance, I encourage you to call your senators, encourage them to vote for the Build Back Better bill. It's likely to pass the Senate only with Democratic votes, and they're kind of teeing it up with a special process to make that happen. We've had conversations with Senator Baldwin's office and have encouraged her to support these provisions. And so if you want to get involved in the process, absolutely, we encourage you to contact those offices wherever you are of any senator and tell them to support the Build Back Better.
And Lisa, with regards to that, you don't need to be 50 and older to call your senator. I mean, so if right now you're like, well, I'm not on Medicare and I can afford my prescriptions, that's terrific. But we also have to think about our neighbor and our family and our network. And eventually we will get to Medicare age. And I think a lot of folks, and I'm 42, I didn't think about that really until I started with AARP, that we just have to look at the bigger picture to make sure that we're looking out for everybody.
And one of the things I'll say, Amber, is that, a couple of pieces. One, that $35 cap on insulin, at least one provision right now, if it stays, and it might not meet some of the rules, that would apply to private insurance companies as well. So that would apply across the board to anybody, not just in Medicare. And I'll also say those private insurance companies, the employer insurance that many folks have, they often follow suit. Medicare is often a leader. A policy will start in Medicare, and then other insurance companies follow. So, it's good if you see a policy you like, support its implementation in Medicare, because it's very likely that you will see it down the road in those employer-sponsored plans as well.
Great. And Lisa, I know you and all of the advocacy team, of course, worked really hard this year. You guys work hard every year. But what are some priorities that AARP will be focusing on for next year in 2022?
We'll keep on working at the state level on many of the issues that we have been for quite a while. The supporting caregivers, continuing to do some things at the state level to lower drug prices, expanding broadband. We'll continue to work on those. I think in 2022, a lot of our efforts will go into voter engagement and elections. There are some big elections coming up in Wisconsin in 2022. We want to make sure that our members and the public, know where candidates stand on the issues that are important to older people. We want to make sure that candidates know, about voters age 50 plus. We're the, folks who are most likely to vote. We're an important voting bloc. But oftentimes candidates don't pay as much attention to those issues. So we'll work to ensure the candidates, know about our priorities, and that the public knows where the candidates stand on those priorities. We'll have a lot. I'm hoping that we'll get to do some in-person things. We'll probably start 2022 with some virtual voter engagement activities, hoping to invite some candidates on for some Meet the Candidate events. And there will be lots of ways that we'll try to keep our members updated. This is also a great opportunity for some new folks to come and volunteer with us. Yeah. We'll have some virtual opportunities. We'll ask people to monitor social media, share some AARP things on social media, find out where the candidates are going to be, in your community. We'll give people questions they can ask candidates. There'll be a ton of different ways to get involved. And so if people want to get involved with us, we welcome volunteers from all over the state. Again, across all political parties, because the work we do continues to be nonpartisan. And it's important to know in our election work, we don't support or endorse any candidates. We don't give money to any PACs or any political parties. We really are about, educating folks on the issues. So we're doing a recruitment drive right now, and you can go to our state webpage and check out. There's some information about volunteering specifically for advocacy, and the more the merrier. We'd love to have folks join us.
Absolutely. And Lisa, before I bid you adieu, I just want to pull up the comment from Arlene, and she said, "Good. Oh my God, good work, AARP. Now now the legislators have to do their job."
You're absolutely right, Arlene, and we'll continue to hold them accountable. And what really holds them accountable are the members, right? It's the members who are the constituents. It's our members at AARP and our volunteers who truly make a difference. And for that, I couldn't be more grateful than getting to work with those amazing folks all year long. And so this is a great time to say thank you to all of them as well.
Great. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for all you do. And I ditto, thank you so much for the volunteers, our red shirts, for their passion and commitment to really move the mission of AARP forward. So thank you as always. We look forward to having you on future shows. You know that we always appreciate when you and Helen come on to talk about all the goodness you guys do.
I'm always excited to share, and thanks so much for having us, Amber.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. And before we end the show, of course, I'd love to promote some upcoming virtual events that might be of interest to you. Coming up, here we go. Tonight at 6 p.m., holiday scams to watch out for. Tuesday, December 14th, Rhodes Scholar Lecture, the last great race. Wednesday, the 15th, One Day University Lecture, Christmas in America. And then Tuesday, the 21st at 6:30, the Girlfriend Book Club discussion. So Apples Never Fall with author Leanne Moriarty. And you can find all of those great events at the website below, or you can dial the 1-877 number to register online. For small dollar, big impact, we will be bringing back this grant program for the new year. So this, of course, is a monthly grant that we accept applications for. If you have a really cool, fun, creative, out-of-the-box idea, if you are a nonprofit or a municipality, for up to $1,000. So the next round of applications are going to be due January 18th. You can find more information at the website below, including the application for itself. And for next week's show, we were, if you recall, a couple months back, we had Biz Starts on to talk about our collaboration. And they just had their pitch competition this past weekend. So we're going to bring them back onto the show next Thursday at noon to talk more about not only the community boot camp, but also the pitch competition. And we're hoping actually to have the first prize winner on with us. So we're going to talk to them. And also, it is National Write a Business Plan Month. So we're going to talk about the importance of writing a business plan. So if perchance in 2022, your goal is to maybe start or expand your business, that would be a really great show for you to come back to. So as always, we appreciate you being here with us today. Please feel free to share this video on your social media, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. And until then, be safe. Thank you so much.